Steven Englander, Standard Chartered Bank head of G10 FX strategy and North American macro research, joins us. Stephen, we had a fascinating tweet from President Trump today again, but he actually mentioned the word impeachment and he gave a judgment on what it might mean for markets. Why are markets ignoring this?
Well, I think we're far away from impeachment. First, the Democrats have to win the House. And secondly, the impeachment process, President Clinton was impeached when he was in office. It's very unlikely to result in a guilty verdict in the Senate. So just being impeached by the House doesn't remove him from office. And then the question would be whether it was viewed as a purely political move by the Democrats to do it and, could end up helping him politically. That's not the first reaction. But I think ultimately the charges have to be well-founded in order to be justified.
And I suppose the question is a little bit broader. You mentioned it as well in your note. It's not just that markets didn't take too much notice of this particular tweet today, but it's that markets seem to be ignoring the midterms, or at least holding their breath. What would you say?
Well, that puzzles me a lot more. I think that there's a normal expectation that the party in power loses seats in the midterm election. So I think the financial markets would be okay if the Democrats took the House, very unlikely to take the Senate. But that would be what we would call a seasonal adjustment, midterm seasonal adjustment there. Wouldn't have much political significance, even though it would prevent much legislation from being passed. The real issue would be if they won by such a big margin that we would begin to wonder whether they would take the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2020. And that would give them a chance to reverse a lot of the tax moves that have been done, reverse a lot of the regulatory moves. And I think that were that to become a real risk in investor minds, we'd see a lot of profit taking very quickly.
Stephen, I'm curious, though. It seems that a lot of the accomplishment Trump has had in the first year and a half here, a lot of that has come through executive orders and other sort of unilateral measures that he's taken. With the exception of the tax cut bill, that was really the only thing that went through Congress. So even if you did get a more divided Congress going into 2019, wouldn't the president still have the ability to sort of force through some of his policy initiatives?
Well, he'd have the ability to force it through, but I don't think regulatory reform on its own or trade policy would give us the kind of increase in the equity market that we've seen since he took office. I think that the trade is certainly second order. If you say what is the best trade deal he could do and what impact would it have on the market, I think the answer is plus or minus a bit, not, it wouldn't be 20% either way. But I think that with respect to taxes, having sort of cut corporate taxes enormously and put the incentives in place for investment, that really drove the market. And if the market ever began to worry that those would be removed, the same way that the Republicans tried to remove Obamacare, that the Democrats, when they take all, House, Senate, and White House, would remove the tax reform, I think the market would react quite dramatically to that risk.
For the moment, Stephen, the dollar is sort of reacting to things like Federal Reserve policy and so on. Do you see that changing anytime soon? Do we need to get to, November before we see any kind of real reaction, at least to political events?
Well, there's the added uncertainty that no one really knows how to read the polls. The generic polls show the Democrats ahead by a couple of percentage points. Most analysts say that in order for the Democrats to win the House, they need a majority in the popular vote for House candidates. Some say 4%, some say as high as 10%. So I think that it's not just how much votes the Democrats are going to get, but nobody really knows what the correct threshold is to say this is going to be a big blue sweep versus saying this is just like a marginal win that has no significance.